Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. I'm Moreh Rapha'Yah. We're going to go ahead and start this Shabbat with one of the continuations of the story of Exodus, Shemot. The name of this Parashat, it's called Waera. This is very important Parashat because it talks about the name of the Creator, Yahweh Tsevaot. And we're about to find out what happens after Moshe went to Midian. He winds up in Midian after so many years being outside Egypt. But remember, that was about 40 years or a little bit more than 40 years that he left Egypt because he had killed an Egyptian, and we talked about this last Shabbat. Now we jump into this parashat, this Torah portion, and we're just about to find out what happens to Moshe. And I think this parashat is very vital and super important for us to know how the Creator appears to Moses and present himself as the Almighty Shaddai. But in this parashat, especially this parashat, talks about the name of the Creator. And let's jump into it, and so we can pretty much discuss about this, how the Creator appears to Moshe. Parashat Waera. Let's jump into it. It's number 14, and it starts from Shemot, or Exodus 6 verse 2 to 9 verse 35. A year Almighty spoke to Moshe, and he said, I am Yahweh. Waera, I appeared to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov as Shaddai. Did I not make myself known to them by my name, Yahweh? And let me just pause here for a moment, brothers and sisters. This could be stated as a question or as a statement, but either or, let's go with the question. My question to you guys, brothers and sisters, is: didn't our forefathers knew the name of the Creator Yahweh? And the straight answer is yes, they did. Adam knew it. Our fathers, Abraham, Yaakov, Yitzhak, they knew the name of the Creator. They actually invoked the name of the Creator. And so thus, even Shem knew the name of the Creator. So the question remains, why does the Torah states in this very verse as more like a question or a statement? And now let's go into as a statement. Once again, the question is, did they know or they didn't? I think basically the answer is in the same verse that we're looking at. And let's just go back. If you notice here, where it says, Waera, I appeared to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov as Shaddai. Now let's go back and let's just pause here for a moment. Let's talk about a little bit of Shaddai. Shaddai is basically, what the meaning of Shaddai is, that Yahweh is our protector. That's one of the reasons, I don't know if you guys do have, and I'm sure you guys do, the mezuzah or mezuzot that you guys put on the little box, that it's encoded a little scroll in there, which is the Shema, which is the Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 4, where it talks about we recite the Shema, which is, Hear Israel, Yahweh our Creator Yahweh is one. There, every house should have it. I have it. I have it actually many doors. But the question remains, what is Shaddai? Shaddai is basically, if you guys notice the shin that you guys have it on the doorpost, on the little box, which is a Shem for Shaddai, is the protector. Yahweh protects our homes. He actually sets an angel to protect our homes, whether we're coming in or we're going out. Yahweh protect us. And this is just a mitzvah. This is a command that Yahweh asks us to do so in our doorpost. Now, hopefully next Shabbat we'll talk about why do we put the tefillin when we prayed, and also the mezuzot in our doorpost. We'll elaborate a little bit more, and it has a lot to do with the Pesach, Passover. But going back here, Shaddai, the reason why our Creator appears to our forefathers as Shaddai, not that they didn't know the name, they did, but as Shaddai is because, if you guys remember, let's give an example of our father Abraham. I believe it's chapter 12 and on, says very clear that our Creator said to Abraham, I will be your shield, I will be your protector. Why? Because everywhere that our father Abraham went, our father Yahweh Sebaot protected our fathers anywhere they went. Now, going back here, as far as didn't I make myself known as Yahweh? Of course they did, but if you want to make it as a statement, it could be as a statement also, because Yahweh, the way he appeared to the Egyptians and to Moses and to our forefathers in the slavery wasn't the same as there was back in the days of our forefathers Yitzhak, Yaakov, and Abraham. The very power that he displayed with the Egyptians and our forefathers wasn't the same. That's why Yahweh is basically stating there. Either or is basically the same thing. Yahweh is our Creator and is not a creation. You have to understand that. Now let's jump into something else, which relates to our Father's name. Isaiah or Yeshayahu 52 verse 6 says very clear here, therefore my people will know my name, for I am Ayil Almighty, the one who speaks. I am present. Now, in this very verse, we have to understand that Echya Ayechya, which means I am who I am. Basically, the Creator is stating, I am present either yesterday, today, or tomorrow, and therefore we should not question His name, because His name doesn't have a beginning nor has an end. We have to understand the name of the Creator. In another time we will discuss completely the name of the Creator, encoded in everything that we can think of, even ourselves, in our DNA. He has literally placed His fingerprint in our DNA, and so therefore even when we even exhale and when inhale the name of Creator, we actually resides. Even when we, if I were to ask you to place a stethoscope in our hearts, and when we breathe, you will actually hear the name of the Creator. But we have to place the stethoscope so you can actually hear it. It's very amazing how the Creator has placed Himself within us, because He is our Creator. You have to understand that. I want you to see this very verse, but let's go here. If you guys notice here, this is a Paleo Hebrew, Yo, He, Wa, He. It reads from right to left. It is here, Yo, He, Wa, He. It basically runs around, the alphanumeric value is 26. The 26 is encoded everything that you can think of when it comes to the number pi, within mathematics, or the DNA, the chromosomes, or anything that you can think of is actually runs around 26. Everything that you can think of runs around 26, because our Creator, once again, places His name encoded everywhere that you can think of, because once again, He's the Creator. And I want to show you something next, but first you have to understand this, that when it comes to how to pronounce the name of the Creator, you have to understand something very important. The vowels that we know of in the original Hebrew, and let me go back over here so you can see pretty much. If you guys notice, there is no vowels on the Paleo-Hebrew, and the reason for it is because the vowels are the name of the Creator. Usually the way is being ordered, it's A, E, U, right? Basically, it's either our Jewish brothers or the Vatican did this in purpose. Don't supposed to be like this, I, A, E, O, U, but rather supposed to be Yahweh, which is the actual order when you put it together. And the reason for it is because the vowels are the name of the Creator Himself. And once again, this was on purpose to put this in this order, either the Vatican or our Jewish brothers, because once again, they don't want you to know the name of the Creator. Now let me give you another. There's so many evidence, once again, how the Creator becomes His name. But rather, I want you to know something, and I want to make a parenthesis before I show you this archaeological finding. To know the name of the Creator is very important because everything is encoded there. And it's a prophecy that in this Achari Chayamim, these latter days, we're supposed to know His name, invoke His name, because it's a command. It's a commandment for us to know and invoke His name, so that way we won't forget His name. And it goes through generations to our sons and sons, and you will not forget. But also His character. His character is very important. Usually when we talk about names, brothers and sisters, this has a lot to do with you, your character. For example, when it talks about the house of David, you see the house of David. Why does it say the house of David? Because the house of David is basically encodes his character. See that? The house of Abraham. The scriptures talks about a whole lot about those things. The name encodes the character. In the Aaronic blessing, the Birkat Kohanim, it says very clear at the very end, after giving the blessing, and I will put my name in the children of Israel. Once again, the reason why the Creator wants to do that is because His character is putting into us. How do we know that? Because the way the Creator is, Kadosh, set apart, we ought to be the same thing. We need to convey His character, not just to know His name, not just to invoke His name, but also carry His name. And the carry His name is by the way we carry ourselves, by the character of Yahweh. That's what the Creator always, even our Mashiach, says, be set apart, be Kadosh, as Yahweh is set apart, is Kadosh. Do you see that? Therefore, we need to carry His character everywhere we go. It's not just to know, it's not just to invoke, but also to action His name, to His character. Let's continue. And I want you to see this finding that it goes back in 1400 BC. This is basically nowadays is Sudan, but back in the Egyptian times, it was part of Egypt basically in the northern part. And you have to understand this, and I want to make a little parenthesis. I'm sorry that I have to stop this, but I don't want you to get confused when I say this. Usually, I've been in Egypt, and I didn't know this, that when it comes to, because the river Nile goes from north to south, if you look it up in the map, but the way Egyptians understand this concept about the Nile going north to south is because the river doesn't go down. The river actually goes up. So for them, in order for them to understand that concept, and for us too, the Westerners, right, is that the northern part is basically the southern, and the southern part is basically the northern part. So that's why I said in basically what is supposed to be the southern is the northern part. So the northern part, this is where they found in Sudan this temple where this Pharaoh is basically boasting himself about all the captures that he did around all these nations, but also he mentions something about these particular peculiar people that are wandering in the desert. And I want you to see what these inscriptions in these hieroglyphics says. If you notice here, dates from 1400 BC, and let's decode this with the hieroglyphics. The first one is land. The second is nomads, which is Ashum. Third one is the letter Y. And then the next one is the Ach. The next one is the Wow. And the next one is the Ech. How do you pronounce this? Or how do you put this whole thing together? It is the land of the nomads of Yahweh. This is how you pronounce it according to even the writings themselves, or the Egyptian writings. The land of the nomads of Yahweh. And how do we know that we're talking about our forefathers, Israel? Is because our forefathers, exactly 1400 BC, it is exactly in the time where our forefathers were wandering on the desert before they enter into the promised land. And if you know what the meaning of the word nomads is, somebody who's actually wandering. Even the scriptures in the Rapha'Yah, in the letter of the Hebrews, chapter 11, it says very clear that our forefathers were wanderers. They were nomads. Abraham was a nomad. Nomads is basically somebody who's moving from place to place. They set up a tent, okay, and after a certain time they put it back together, and they set up to move to another place. Our forefathers were nomads by nature, so we have to understand that. So this is basically talking about our forefathers, and even mentioning the name of our Creator Yahweh. Very precise. Isaiah 42 verse 8, I am Yahweh, that is my name, and I do not share my kabod, my esteem, with anyone else, nor my chalel, my praise, with any Elohim, any idols, any demons. Well, you have to understand something, brothers and sisters. Our Creator is Echad. He's not many. If you watch the video that I will put on at the end of the video, please watch it. It has a lot to do with the name of the Creator Yahweh, and also Elohim. And I want you to watch that so you can understand what I'm talking about, that our Creator is not a creation. Demons, okay, are creations, and our Creator is not a creation. He's the Creator. So it's very important for us to understand that when it comes to Yahweh himself, is not many. He's Echad. Even our Mashiach said very clear when they asked him what is one of the two great commandments. Our Mashiach says very clear, Shema Yisrael Yahweh Borenu Yahweh Echad. He said it very clear. The same thing as our forefathers recite the Shema. Even our Mashiach knew it. Why? Because it hasn't been lost. Tradition is the one that makes us lose the originality of everything. And when we go back to these verses, we get kind of confounded about the real truth, but we find the truth is really hard to swallow. So I'm exposing the truth, but I want you to have open mind so you can do your own research. Just don't believe in everything that I said. Please take notes and do your own research, because it's your diligence to do so. 7 verse 6, I will bind bonds to you. I will cause flesh to grow in you, and I will cover you with skin. I will put breath, my ruach, in you, and you will live, and you will know that I am Yahweh. Basically, what our Creator's spoken here in this very verse is basically the dry bones. That has a lot to do with Ephraim, the house of Israel, which is us, the northern kingdom. And when he says that I will put my ruach, my inspiration in you, is basically is happening in these very latter days, in the Achari Hayami. When he says I am Yahweh, is basically he's stating I'm causing the existence to you. I'm causing for you to continue to live. It is very important for us to understand that we're not autonomous. We don't depend on our own. We depend on our Creator. Without Him, we're nothing. Even our Mashiach said very clear. Okay? So it's very important for us to understand that the Creator is the origin of everything. Let's continue and go back to our portion. Exodus 4 verse 2, Yahweh answered him, what is in your hand? And he said, a rod. And he said, chase her on the ground. And he cast it into the ground and became a serpent. Moshe drew back from it. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, stretch out your hand and take it from by the tail. He stretched out his hand and took it and became a rod in his hand. Now, I want to pause here for a moment, brothers and sisters. And I want you to understand something very crucial when it comes to Moshe when he is in front of the burning bush. We're just going a little fast forward because I want you to see something crucial. That, as we spoke last week's, that road that he took all the way to Midian, he went for a certain reason, and that is to go into the mountain Sinai, okay, up to a certain point and meet the Creator in the burning bush up in the mountain. Now, how in the world the staff, the rod, became in his hands is because, as we already talked about this, the Almighty knew that he needed to give it to him because he is the one who needed to pass on. Now, I want you to see something next, because we kind of left it out hanging from last week, and I want you to see something next. Verse 20, Moshe took the staff of Ayil, the Almighty, in his hand. Where did he get the staff? Let's jump into the book of Yashar as a reference. Chapter 77, verse 36. And he saw, and behold, the man Moshe lived in the dungeon, standing, exalting and praying to Yahweh and his forefathers. And Ruel, aka Yitro, ordered Moshe to be taken out of the dungeon. So they shaved him and changed his prison's clothes and ate bread. Now here, we're going as a reference for you to understand that when he was for 10 years with Yitro, his future father-in-law, remember that we talked about that he didn't actually believe him. And why they didn't believe him? Because he thought that he fled where he was coming from. But in reality, he was let go because basically the queen didn't want, or Moshe rather, they didn't want him to marry the queen. So after 40 years of ruling as a king in Assyria, the queen said, you know what, never mind, I need someone else. So they let him go with riches and gifts. He wound up in Midian, and this is what I want you to see something very next. Verse 38, and then Moshe went into the garden of Roel, which was behind the house, and there he prayed to Yahweh his Almighty, and who had done mighty things for him. And it came to pass that while he was praying, he looked before him, and behold, a sapphire rod was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. Now, all this wasn't by pure accident. He was already foretold that he was going to take it. Why? Because he was the deliverer of Israel in bondage. Remember that we talked about that he was prophesied that he was the one who was going to deliver our forefathers. He was going to become the Mashiach at that time, the anointed one, because that's what Mashiach is. Very important, because this rod is not just any rod, okay? It is something very special. this rod, this sapphire rod, was basically on that garden. And he saw this garden, okay? And he saw something that it was basically shining, glowing, okay? And look at what it says here, verse 40. And the name of Yahweh Almighty of armies was engraved on it, written and developed up on the rod. And he read it and stretched out his hand and plucked it like a tree out of the forest from the thicket, and the rod was in his hand. Now, it is very crucial for us to understand that this rod was not just any rod. It was passed on from generations to generation, but it was placed in the basically on the where Joseph died. They placed it on the treasure of Egypt. Verse 48, and after the death of Joseph, the nobles of Egypt entered the house of Joseph, and the stick went into the hands of Reuel the Midianite, and he came out of the Egypt. He took it in his hand and planted on his garden, and all the mighty men of the Canaanites tried to tear it off from when they tried to get Zipporah his daughter, but they were unsuccessful. Why? Reuel, Jethro, remember that we talked about that he was one of the counselors of the Pharaoh. Job was another counselor, and also Bilam as well. Remember that he gave a favorable advice to the Pharaoh, but Pharaoh wasn't really happy about that advice to let our forefathers go back to the promised land. Yet he wasn't very pleasant, very happy about it. So Reuel, he felt really embarrassed and rejected, and he just left, and he took the staff where he resides, which is Midian. Now, the land of Midian, he planted his staff and he placed it in his garden, where after he tried to pluck it back and it just couldn't. Let me ask a question. Haven't we heard this story before? The story of King Arthur. As I always state, and I won't get tired of saying this, the past repeats itself. It's just a pattern that we see over and over again in the scriptures. Verse 50, so the stick remained planted in Reuel's garden until the one who was the right to it came in, took it. And when Reuel saw the rod in Moshe's hand, he wondered about it, and he gave his daughter Zipporah as his wife. Now, I want you to have an open mind, brothers and sisters, when I say this. Think about it logically. Let's just say, because some of these things on the Torah, we have to kind of look and find the little details, little gaps that the Torah leaves. We have to go some other places to look where the gaps are to fill in. If you notice and you think about it, how lame it is for him to be 40 years, okay, in Midian, okay, let's just say it, okay, and after so many years, he's just gonna have a baby, or a 3-4 years old baby, marrying Zipporah, going back to Egypt. Those kids should be probably 20s or 30s, but instead we see that it doesn't. Some of the things don't make any sense. So we need to think outside the box, and there is a lot of details that we need to fill in until what the Torah left out, and that's what we're bringing in. So that's what I'm asking you to have an open mind, so we can find the truth of the matter. Chapter 7, verse 10. Now let's look into this. Moshe and Aaron went back before Pharaoh and did this, as Yahweh have commanded Aaron, threw his rod to the ground before Pharaoh and his servants, and he became a serpent. But Pharaoh in turn sent for his sages and sorcerers, and also the magicians of Mizraim, or Egypt, did the same, making use of their secret arts. Now, I always wonder who were these magicians, who were these sorcerers. They had to be someone or some people that we know. the Torah actually talks about them, but we need to put them together. I want you to see this in the Targum Jonathan as a reference on this verse. In this verse, Pharaoh called the Haken and the magicians, and they too, Yanis and Yambres, magicians of Mizraim, did the same with their divination burnings. Now, who wore this? Because if you guys remember, Yanis and Yambres basically are these, actually the Brit Hadashah, the letters of Jude, I believe, Jude talks about these two guys, okay? But we still don't know who are these guys, because these guys appear in many places as two guys, always, okay? That they were with another individual, but we never put everything together. Let's put them together this time. I want you to see this in Yasher 79 verse 25. And Pharaoh said to Moshe, what do you need? And they answered him, saying, Yahweh Yil Almighty of the Hebrews has sent us to you to say my people to serve me. And when Pharaoh heard their words, he was greatly terrified before them. And he said to them, go today and come back to me tomorrow. And they did so according to the word of the king. Now the reason why he sent them out is because he was going to ask for an advice, a counsel. And who were these counselors or counsel? Verse 27, when they were gone, the Pharaoh sent Bilam. Do you see that? It was Bilam all alone, the magician, and Yanis and Jambres, his sons. See that? And all the magicians, conjurers, and counselors that belonged to the king, and they all came and sat before the king. If you notice something very shocking here, because Pharaoh called no one else but Bilam and his two sons and the rest of the counselors. It's something very important, because these two guys, Yambres and Yanes, were all along the sons of Bilam. We know who Bilam is. We seen Bilam later fighting with our forefathers in the desert. Remember that he was a magician by hire. Many nations hire him for money. And not just him, his two sons as well. So once again, we always need to put those things together so we understand, have a better concept of these things. Now let me ask you a question. Don't you know that, don't you think that Moses knew them, Moshe knew them? Of course he did. Remember that he tried to kill him. He tried to have him killed with giving his counsel to Pharaoh, but because Moses was saved in the waters. If you don't know, please go back to the previous parashat, previous story portion, so we can, because we talked about that. Let's continue here. Exodus 7:10, Moshe and Aaron went before Pharaoh and did this as Yahweh had commanded. Aaron threw his rod to the ground in front of Pharaoh and his servants, and he turned into a serpent. This is what Yahweh told them to do so, and he did so. Now let's look at something else. Targum Jonathan, in this very verse, I will put enmity between you and the woman, between the seed of your son and the seed of the children. And it will be when the sons of the woman keep the mitzvot commands of the Torah, they will be ready to stab you on your head. But when they abandon the commands of the Torah, you will be ready to strike them in the heel. But for them that there will be a medicine, but for you there will be no medicine. And they will make a remedy for the heel in the days of the King Mashiach. That is the remedy of our latter days, brothers and sisters. From the moment that our Mashiach came in the first century until this very last latter days, in the Rapha'Yah that we're living right now, we have the medicine with the antidote, which is the Mashiach, because we have not been keeping Torah, okay, or our whole life, which is barely a few years back. getting to know Torah, and the little that we know, we have to understand that our remedy for our cause of our failures is our Mashiach. Our Mashiach is the remedy, our salvation. Without him, we're nothing. So it's very important for you to understand that, this concept. Now let's go back. Because remember, Satan always been from the very beginning trying to make us fall, our fathers, unto this very last day. But good thing that we have our antidote, our medicine. Chapter 7, verse 10. Sorry, let's go back over here. Okay, verse 15. 3:15. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between the seed of the hers, and shall bruise you on the head, and shall bruise the heel. This is what the Torah says, and this is what we read on that very verse. Now, chapter 7, verse 12. Each one of them threw the rod to the ground, and became snakes, but Aharon's rod was swallow theirs. The word for swallow is wayibla, which means swallow. Now, I want you to see what it says here in the Targum Yonatan in this very verse. Each man threw down his rod and became basilisk, but they were immediately changed to be what they were at first. And Aharon's rod swallowed his rod. Now, let me pause here for a moment, because once again, there is a reason why the Torah is very amazing when it talks about what was so great that our Father Yahweh is the original thinker, the original creator, the original of everything. Anything else is just piracy, is everything just replica. Satan's always been doing it from the very beginning, trying to replicate, trying to copy everything, mimic everything that our Creator does. If you notice here, and a great example, how the Creator told them to just throw this rod, this staff, into the ground, it will become a snake. But there is something that they knew how to do it. This is something that they could do too as well. But there is something that they couldn't do, and this is, I want you to see this. But first, I want to show you this because it relates to our Mashiach when he comes back. Isaiah 25, verse 8, and he will swallow, wayibla, death forever, for Yahweh our Almighty will wipe away the tears from every face, and will remove from all the earth the misfortunes that his people suffer, because Yahweh has spoken. This is what our Mashiach, remember. And once again, there is a link that hopefully I can put another link there about the two snakes in the scriptures, the copper snake and the green snake. The green snake is basically Satan, and the copper snake relates to our Mashiach. If you remember, the Creator converted this staff into a snake, which is the copper snake. Remember that Moshe also erected a snake. It was a copper snake. That's our Mashiach. Even Mashiach himself says, just as Moshe lifted up his snake, the Son of Man will be lifted up as well. See that? So it's nothing that we're making up. Any story is basically in the Torah himself. So let's go back over here. I want you to see something very, very amazing. For every Egyptian, ingesting was a performative tool for the destruction and absorption of power. This is something that the magicians knew that they could do every time they swallow something. It was almost absorbing the power of the opposite. Book of Yashar 79, verse 38. And the serpent from Aharon's rod lift up his head and open his mouth and swallow the rods of the magicians. See, here, I want you to understand, same as the Torah, I'm just giving you extra information. This is what they ask them to do so, okay? They ask them, hey, do the same thing, and we'll do the same thing. But something that we can do is turning back the staff and swallowing the rest of the staff. And this is something that Yahweh's staff could do. Verse 39, Balaam the magician answered and said, this has been since the old days, that the serpent should swallow his mates, and that the living creatures devour one another. Now therefore, return it to the rod as it was in the very beginning, and we will restore our rods as they were at the beginning. And if your rod swallows our rods, then we will know that the Spirit of Yahweh is in you. And if not, you are only artificer like ourselves. Basically what he's speaking here is that if you do the same thing as us, you become just like us, a magician. But because something that they couldn't perform, which is turning back onto rod and swallow the rest of the rods, and exactly what Yahweh did. Once again, this is what Satan always trying to replicate, but he cannot do the rest, which is the original thing. Yasher 79:42, when they were restored to the rods of Aharon swallowed them by the rods. Do you see that? Very clear, the same as the Torah speaks, that if they were swallowed the rods, not the serpents, the rods. This is an archaeological finding where they were very aware of the serpents, the staff, that they can actually do the same thing. Okay, and it's something that there's something that they, a new revelation. They've been doing it for years. Something that the magicians and priests could perform. And remember this, let me make a little parenthesis here, brothers and sisters. Something that even Moshe knew, because remember, he was among them. He was going to become the next Pharaoh, but he rejected all that. Even in Hebrews it speaks about he rejected the wisdom of the Egyptians, but he rather chose the Torah. It's very clear when it comes to all this knowledge. If you notice here, actually I took a picture of this in Egypt, where you see the Pharaoh holding, it's not a Pharaoh, I take it back, sorry. It's the priest holding all the staff, but there are snakes, the cobra snakes. There are more findings that you can Google it. I actually took pictures of it when I was in Egypt. So this is basically what you see, exactly what they could perform themselves. Now, going back over here, I'm going to show you something very that pretty much jump into what the staff also could do, but not just the serpent, but would do many wonders, many signs that the Egyptians will actually experience. And remember this, and I also want to mention this, that this wasn't in a period of 1 week. It wasn't 2 weeks. It wasn't a month. All these 10 signs, 10 miracles, 10 wonders was in a period of a year or even a little bit more. So it wasn't just a small period of time. And the reason for it, brothers and sisters, is because if you think about all the wonders that Yahweh did, he's using the same nature. Remember what the Yahweh says when he says, I will put the heavens and earth. Remember what I said this. And please look it up because it's in the Torah. I will place the heavens and earth as a witness that if you don't do this, I will do this. You see that? He's stating our forefathers about this. So basically what Yahweh is stating in those words are that he's utilizing the same nature to judge humankind and even ourselves. In this case, in the case of Egypt, he's utilizing the whole entire year to utilize the ecosystem, talking about every season, okay, to judge their nation. So it wasn't just like a week or 2 weeks or 2 months. No, it was the entire year to perform these wonders. 7 verse 15 of Exodus, see Pharaoh in the morning when he goes into the waters, standing on the bank of the river to confront him. Take in your hand the rod that was turned into a serpent, the same rod that he utilized to use it as a serpent, to turn into a serpent, now is utilizing to do something next. Now, question is, why was it doing Pharaoh early in the morning? Look at what Targum Jonathan says in this very verse. Go to the Pharaoh in the morning, behold, he comes to observe divinations in the water, like a magician. So you will prepare to meet him in the bank of the river Nile, and you will take the rod of Aharon that was changed to be a serpent on your hand. This is something, once again, that it wasn't just the magicians, it was also Pharaoh himself. They could perform some things, some divinations, because every Pharaoh had to know that the secrets of the unknown, the secrets of black magic, the secrets of magicians, of spells and so forth. They had to know, okay, because every Pharaoh had to know the 70 languages, they had to know mathematics, they have to know military, they have to know a lot of things in order for them to be seen. But Moshe was going to show him something that it was more powerful than who was performing by the river Nile. And that was turned into in every source of water. Either it could be rivers, it could be canals, even in their houses, water was going to turn into blood. The whole nation of Egypt was going to suffer this, except for the land of Goshen, where our forefathers were. Let's look it up, the King James Version, and then we'll look into the Torah 7 verse 19. And let there be blood throughout the region of Egypt, both in the vessels of wood and in those of stone. Now, the reason why I want you to notice something very peculiar here with the vessels of wood, it actually is not a vessel, brothers and sisters. This is I don't know, it's a bad translation, a very nasty translation that shouldn't even be there. And let's look it up in the actual same verse. Yahweh said to Moshe, said to Aharon, take the rod, stretch out your hand over the waters of Mitzrayim, over the rivers, canals, lagoons, and all over the mikveh chamayim, the gatherings of water, so that they can be turned into blood. And this will be blood in all the land of Mitzrayim. So in Etzin, which is the wood, and Abanim, which is the stone. You see that? So basically, what the Creator is stating here is that he is basically stating that the blood was not just going to come out in the rivers or the vessels or anything that you can think of, but rather was going to come in their images, which is their idols. Remember that they have idols. Okay, they worshiping many idols at that time. Going back to idolatry, because remember the time of Yosef, idolatry wasn't around because he eradicated idolatry. Remember, he became one of the, basically second of the kings, so he could do a lot of changes, and he did. He even instituted the circumcision. If you guys didn't know, he instituted the circumcision. It's something that you can actually find basically on the hieroglyphics performing circumcision. Now, this etzin, this wood, and this abanim, this stone, let's look it up. And the stone is referring to all the idols that they possessed. Imagine every person that they had idols in their homes basically was going to bleed blood. It was a way of Yahweh revealing himself that it was going to bleed every idol that they worship. Okay, anywhere that you can think of, it was going to bleed. All the idols that they had was going to bleed, and it's something that they horror that every Egyptians were going to experience when they were on that moment of time. book of Devarim, Deuteronomy 4:28, and they will serve Elohim, idols, demons, gods, who are the product of human hands, made of wood and stone. Do you see that? Who cannot see, speak, eat, or smell. This is what basically Yahweh is speaking, the same idiom here, the same words, etzin and abanim, wood and stone, same thing. Deuteronomy 28:36, Yahweh will bring you and your king, whom have set over your nation, that will have not known, neither you nor your fathers, and they will serve other Elohim, demons, gods, made of wood, you see that, and stone. Once again, is utilizing the same terminology as we just previously seen. Jeremiah 2:27, they say to the piece of wood, you are my father, and to the stone you gave us life, for they have turned their backs to me instead of their faces, but when the calamity comes, they will cry out, arise and save us. And this is exactly what we have experienced and we are experiencing today. People are relying in idolatry. People are relying in something that they can actually see, a product, like the scripture says, a product of their own hands, something that they cannot save. They can even save themselves, nor this wood and stones. So basically, we come to a close, brothers and sisters. Everything that we've seen so far is amazing. We go back in many references. We can fill in the gaps, so we have a better understanding what the Torah speaks about, what the Creator wants for all of us in these very latter days. And I think it's something that we ought to get to know more, little by little, all these little nuances, details, how we can perceive the Creator in His Torah. We're closing. My name is Moreh Rapha'Yah, and we'll see you until next Shabbat for the next Parashat. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom.